All right, hi, I'm Allie Lieberman, and I'll be speaking with you today about a project I'm doing in collaboration with Ona Mir and Juliana Schroeder. People increasingly are using technologies across a range of different modalities. And within each modality, people can choose to consume a message via different media. So for example, in the visual modality, people may choose to watch something on a television or on a 3D headset. And within the auditory modality, people can choose to listen to a message either via headphones or via speakers. Now, these media vary on a multitude of dimensions, and in this research, we define the sophistication of a medium as its ability to both provide rich content and also decrease external distraction. Here we focus specifically on the auditory modality and propose that listening to a message via a more sophisticated medium, such as headphones, relative to a less sophisticated medium, such as speakers, will actually influence how a listener perceives the communicator and even how they behave toward them. In our paper, we provide a broader theory about how the sophistication of a medium influences several different psychological consequences, and in today's short talk, I'll speak just about a portion of our framework. We heard yesterday quite a bit about how hearing the cues in somebody's voice can influence how someone perceives another. And in this research, we propose that listening to a message via a more sophisticated medium will actually enhance the vividness of those vocal cues, so that's somebody's ability to hear the pitch and volume in another's voice, and that this will increase what we call social immersion, which is the perceived physical and psychological closeness to that other individual. And based on prior literature, we predict that an increase in social immersion will lead to a more positive impression of that person, which is a perceived mental capacity, that they're warmer and more competent, and that this will also influence empathy and even empathy-driven behaviors. So in our first study, we brought participants into the lab and we had them listen to a clip, which was a real mother and daughter speaking about their experience being homeless. Half the participants listened in headphones and half in speakers, and then they reported several measures, social immersion, their impression of the women, and how much empathy they felt toward them. We then asked a donation decision, which is a known consequence of empathy. And we predicted that listening in headphones would increase the vividness of the vocal cues of these women, and that this would increase all of these measures. And indeed, the people who listened in headphones reported being significantly more socially immersed, which was physically and psychologically closer to these women. And this increase in social immersion led to a more positive impression of the women, and they felt more empathy toward them. After responding to these measures, we then said, okay, you're entered into a lottery for $25, and if you happen to win, how much of that $25 would you like to donate to these women? And among the people that donated, those who heard the message in headphones donated significantly more than those who heard the same exact words in speakers. Now, in our second study, we wanted to dig into the mechanism a little bit more, and we now had, again, half the participants listen in headphones and half in speakers. But half of the people heard the same clip that the people in study one heard, this mother and daughter speaking with their natural vocal cues. And then the other half heard a replication of the clip that was two actors reading the same exact words, but we asked them to read it with no thought or feeling. So we removed the vocal cues from their voice. They then reported social immersion and impression. And we predicted that if indeed social immersion and its consequences are being amplified by this vocal cues, then removing them, we should see no difference. And indeed, we found that participants who listened in headphones once again reported greater social immersion and perceiving the communicators as having greater mental capacity. But this was only the case for the people that heard the clip with the natural vocal cues. Those who heard the clip with no vocal cues reported no difference on either measure, no matter with which medium they listened to the message. So just in conclusion, across several studies, we show here that listening to a message via a more sophisticated medium increases social immersion, and that this is driven by the vividness of the vocal cues. And this increase in social immersion can lead to a more positive impression of the communicator heard, and even affect empathy and empathy-driven behaviors. So in a world where we're increasingly exposed to messages every single day, this research is showing that a seemingly inconsequential decision, which is how you listen to that message, can really have predictable and important consequences. Thank you. So the reason that we didn't in this first paper is that for a few different reasons. One, that could act as a confound just by adding in different elements, and we really wanted to focus on the vocal cues. And because based on some of Juliana's previous work, they found that adding the visual aspect really is just redundant on top of the voice. So here we focused really on the voice. Yeah.
Just curious about the vividness aspect. You use actors to remove.
Mm-hmm.
Could we amplify them in other words?
Could we?
Does it break at some point?
That's a good question. Yeah. We haven't tested that. My intuition is that because we're so used to picking up on these natural vocal cues, if you went the other end, it might start to sound insincere, and you might find the same thing as removing them. That's if it's like with that. It's a good question. In ours, the vividness, so we define vividness as the rich content, but it's really, when you're listening in headphones in particular, the noise that you hear is more pure, as opposed to speakers, it's bouncing off across the room. So another word might be like pure cues, yeah. I think I'm